Today I'm going to be reviewing this John Lewis home closet system that was recently sent to me by the brand. This is designed to be solid wood, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the installation process, show you exactly what that's going to look like. So this is a closet that we're going to be putting it into. We already took out all of the racks and everything. These are just going to be the racks that we had for our original closet system. So we still have to unscrew those, take those out, that sort of a deal. But once we do that, then we're going to get this put into here. Now this is actually going to come when they deliver it to you in multiple boxes, as I kind of showed. The instructions are going to be in the big long box, and they're actually going to be inside of this box, inside of the big long box, one with all of the parts. So just something you'll want to note. So second step of the assembly, you're going to put these cams into here. And the issue is these are going to be drilled way too deep. So if you put these all the way down in there, then it goes down way too far for these to go into these holes. So that's kind of annoying that they wouldn't actually make sure that they're drilled to the proper depth. So not too terribly difficult to fix. You're just going to need to take a flathead screwdriver, put it in there and pry it up to get it to the right height. So for these holes, you're actually just going to want to put them in almost flush, and that's going to be where it is. So don't shove them down in there like that. You're just going to put them flush at the top. So again, hole drill depth is the issue. So another issue with the assembly process, they don't give like any information about the screws. They just name the screws. So these screws are not numbered or anything like that. So that's especially going to get to be an issue when you have all of these different types of screws. So for example, again, I'm only on like step number 3 here, and I'm going to be putting these in, and it just says use the barrel nuts. So I'm going to assume that's going to be these like cam nuts again, but here at the top, it says you're going to insert your cam nuts, and then down here it says you're going to insert your barrel bolts, and there's no like numbers or anything. There are a lot of pictures, so that's helpful, but it would just be really nice if they would have just simply marked all of the different parts you're going to be using during the assembly. Now, it is important to note that when you're putting in these barrel bolts, so they're the long bolts that have like the little barrel that comes in this backside here, it is important that you ensure that you don't cross thread it. It's super easy to cross thread. What you need to do is you need to use a screwdriver to hold this little barrel, like the nut almost. You need to hold that entirely flat with a screwdriver. If it moves even the slightest, you can easily cross thread these. And if you do that, then it's going to mess up the barrel, it's going to mess up the bolt, it's going to mess up the entire thing. So just make sure you hold it. And then my second tip is when you're putting these in, jiggle them a bit as you're getting them into the barrel to get it to seat right. When it seats right, it should twist in really, really easy until you get down to just a smidge left. Next step is going to be you're going to put this tower, essentially the holder, onto here. The issue that I'm running into is it tells you to put it between the first and second brackets, right? Which should be right here. There's no holes, there's no anything. So you're just like guessing that it's going to be right, or you're going to have to try and measure to get it exactly right. And then the other issue is it tells you to use specific screws. The issue is, what of these am I supposed to use? Like, there's no step numbers, there's no markings on them. It just says use 3/4 inch screws. So there's a bunch of different ones. Does it matter? Does it not matter? Like the instructions and then the way they have this laid out for the assembly is truthfully not intuitive at all. Now, one issue we run into with these mounting brackets is that they're not going to be spaced where you can actually get both of them into studs. It's just the way that it is. So it's actually going to be, if you have 16 on center, it's not even going to be close. If you have 24 on center, it's actually going to be like 24 will actually be to here. So that's definitely kind of frustrating that they didn't put like a bracket across the back. They are going to, of course, have it mounted into studs on the thing that's carrying the tower. So I think it'll be okay. We're going to make sure we get the one side of these brackets. So these 3 here are actually going to go into studs. So we'll make sure of that. And then the ones on that side we'll just do into the drywall anchors. But still, it's a little bit frustrating that they didn't make it where you could actually get all of these tower brackets into studs. So this is what it's going to look like so far. What I would recommend is what we're going to run into is we're actually going to put like screws down the stud line here. So there, and there on this tower piece. And then this one isn't actually going to hit a stud on here, but we got this into a stud and then this one into a stud. Now these side pieces are going to be cut to fit, so you will need a saw or for it to be bigger than the pieces that you have. On this side over here, we're going to trim off, it's going to be somewhere around 1 inch or so. And this one over here, we're going to be trimming off considerably more because it's a much longer piece designed for a variety of different sizes. Now, one thing you will want to keep in mind when you're installing this is just hit as many studs as possible. So ours are going to be 24 inches on center. If you're 16, you can probably catch studs with all 3 of these across. But we caught 2 studs here at the top because we're at 24. So there and there. If you're 16, they're going to be more like in here and in here. But you're just going to mount that. You're also going to really want a 4-foot level just to make sure you're doing this. Now, we're also configuring this slightly different here. So we're making our top shelf the same all of the way across. Whereas the way they typically will do it is you'll put it like down some. And the reason why we're doing that is we're actually gonna add an additional rung just for hanging clothes. So you do have one side that's designed for like dresses or longer outfits, you know, if you're wearing, you know, overalls or rompers or those sorts of things. But what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do a shorter one and then another shorter one down at the bottom, just like we did on this side. So it's not gonna come with enough shelving for that, but it's okay, it'll still look good. We're gonna just have the same shelf all the way across, and then we're just gonna purchase a bar separately to run from like here across to give us that extra room in here. So I'll come back with you once we get everything in. I did also wanna note, when they say cut to fit, they don't just mean the wooden boards, although you do have to cut the wooden boards. They also mean the metal poles. These are not adjustable at all. So they do come with ends, but you're gonna need an angle grinder or something that's gonna be able to cut through these hollow metal poles for your clothes racks as well. One thing that we'll run into when installing these actual like drawers in here is that if this thing is not hung 100% level or even though it's soft close, it's only gonna soft close on one side and your other side is gonna stick out. So you can kind of see here, you kind of have to manually push it in. So that's just going to be an issue probably for most closets, meaning you're going to need everything to be hung exactly level. So this is going to need to be exactly level. It's going to need to be hung exactly level at the top for those to fit in. Not the end of the world, of course. Like obviously you should be trying to hang something level, but the fact that it has to be 100% level for it to work right is a little bit of an issue. Because obviously if you're a DIY, you're not gonna be able to get something exactly perfect. And in this case, that was what happened with us. The other thing I do wanna mention is when you're putting these screws in for these drawer mounts, so you've got one here, and then one that's going to be behind this little soft close thing right here in the back. The issue is that your screws are actually going like halfway on here and halfway into the slot. So again, it just kind of seems a little bit poor design, where it would have been so much better for them to either put this down further or move it up some, so that way it's going to either into the slot or it's going onto this wood, and it's half and half both in there and in the rear. So kind of a little bit of an issue getting those in. What often happens was I ended up stripping these out, and then they have to be in far enough for these slides, because the soft close go right on top of them, so they have to be in far enough where this can still slide. So just a couple of issues that we ran into with the drawers. So it is finished. As you can see here, this specific model is going to have drawers on the bottom and then have doors on the top. Now, one thing to note, you can buy this without the doors and the drawers. I definitely do prefer it with the doors and the drawers on it. All of these are going to be soft close, so you can kind of see here, you pull it out, and then when you go and push it back in, it soft closes the rest of the way. Same thing with these doors. So they're going to also soft close. So definitely do like that feature about this closet system. I love the way that it ended up looking. One thing that is going to be just a little bit of a difficulty is going to be you are going to need all the tools. So you're going to need a saw. Like we used a jigsaw for this to cut through all the wood. You're going to definitely going to need a drill of some sort. We have battery powered drill, so that worked out well. You know, I mentioned a couple of downsides here in this video, but overall definitely do love the way that it ended up looking. Would have been helpful if some of the instructions were a bit clearer, some things were more clearly marked, but certainly wasn't the end of the world. Truthfully, we got to a point where we just started just looking at the pictures it had an abundance of pictures, and started following on there. So we actually mounted this one up a bit higher. So we mounted that one at the top, whereas on the instructions, it tells you to mount it in the middle. And then we're actually going to get an additional bar and put it down here. So that way we have like shirts and shorter items down here at the very, very bottom, just so we can kind of have it similar to the way that it is on this side. But overall, definitely a really nice closet set. Love the way that it ended up looking and turning out.